Hello, modern drummer. I'm David Frangioni. We're back again here on the Hard Rock stage, and I'm joined today by the legendary Ian Paice. Ian?
All right. How are you?
Doing great,
Leave my cymbal alone.
Yes, I'm sorry. These 15s are a little unwieldy for me. So, everybody, I can't wait for you guys to see Ian's kit, and we're going to take you around it. So, get ready. Here we go. So Ian, when did this configuration come into play? When did this start?
Well, towards the end of my time with the other drum company, I had more toms than this. They were all those melody toms, with the single head things. And I sort of got used to having all the different sounds. And when I decided to go back to having two head drums, I found that most of the sounds were just effects. I really never played them more than once or twice a night. But I wanted more tones. And as I like a big ride cymbal, I like it low, I couldn't spread the toms across the bass drum like most people would do. Just couldn't do it. There's no way of doing it. So I wanted the 10-inch tom because it's a nice effect. And the only place I could stick it was there. So it was a necessity, really, more than anything else. And having the difference between the 12 and the 13, although the drums are similar in size, they have a totally different picture to the sound, and so that was nice too. But I'm really honest with you, it's still basically a 4-drum kit. Everything else here is effects. This is a towel holder. If it was good enough for Buddy Rich, it's good for me. Yeah. These are purely cosmetic. I never actually play them. On the odd occasion, I will tell my roadie to say, take the 15 there and put it where the 13 is, and just have 4-drum kit and lose all of them, just so I think differently. Because when you haven't got the tones, you have to start thinking in patterns again.
Right.
You can't go do 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 do. All you got is do do. That's it. Yeah. So that's interesting too, because you just have to remember being creative in a different way. And so I don't do very often. When I do, it's you've got to think a bit more, because you can't rely on musically different sounds to let you get away with stuff. So that's why.
So this, what I call like the triangle configuration, right? This would be like 84, 85 as the origin.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, 83 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I couldn't think of anywhere else to stick it. I tried it there, but of course the hi-hat ends up behind your back. It's just where it had to go. And I say, if when I do small shows back in Europe with a little band I just get to play with to keep playing, I don't use a 10. It's not necessary, But with Purple, I just like to have that silly little sound sometimes coming through in a film. It's a nice addition,
And you've been with Pearl now since 83-ish, right? And only the second drum company that in your illustrious career, you've had 2 drum companies, and Pearl being now for the last 40 or so years. And what are you playing here? Let's go through the specifics.
Well, in this situation, most of these drums are mine. When we got here to the States, one of my flight cases obviously gone somewhere else. And so we lost my snare drums, and we lost the 10 and the 12-inch toms. We still don't know where they are. They're either in London, or they're in Miami, or they're probably in Tokyo somewhere. I don't know. 10 by 8, 12 by 8, 13 by 9, 16, 16, 18, 16, 14, 10, 15, 10. That wasn't a standard size till I asked Pearl to make it for me, and now they do make it. Because on the old Ludwig kit from Made in Japan, that was a 1610. That was just one of those chopped up for 10.
Oh, okay.
And that would have been my small floor tom, and the bigger one was a 20. But it was a lovely kit. I wish I still had it, but I don't.
Oh, you don't have it was a silver sparkle?
I had 3 or 4 kits in my garage, and there was a local kid who hadn't got a decent kit. So I said, well, just borrow one of mine, you know. So I picked what I thought was just one of the regular ones out of the garage, and I gave it to him. I said, look, when you're done, just bring them back.
That was the
and it was the made in Japan kit.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness!
Yeah.
Wow. So and you never saw the kit again?
No. Kid or kit disappeared. Yeah.
Both disappeared. Okay.
Yeah. If he's still got them, he doesn't know these sat on a fortune.
Oh my good! And these are Masterworks, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that the model of Pearl that you've chosen?
They're just Masterworks.
26-inch kit.
26 by 14.
Okay.
I'm not a great lover of these deep bass drums. I don't see the point. Some of these sizes that we've got were developed over the last 100 years to be the correct sizes. You know, the 13 9-tom, the 12 8. The bass drums are always narrow. What was the point? You know, if the head is further away, then the sound's got further to go before the front head resonates.
Right.
So I reckon they got it right. So who am I to outguess them? And it was Carmine told me about it first of all. We did a wonderful show with them in Radio City when they put the fudge back together for a couple of days. And he'd gone back to 24 kicks, but they were 14s, and they sounded wonderful. And I had 16 then, and I was really never really happy with it. And I thought, that's it. They just need to be narrower again. You know, well, it's just, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. It's just for me, it sounds better.
Have you always played at 26? Does that go way back?
From the Made in Japan record time, which would be 1970. Yeah. 71.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
that was 26.
The studio, depending on the room, you know, I'll use a 24. If the room's no good, I will try a 22 because it's a get out of jail bass drum. It always works, but it sounds like everybody else's bass drum. You know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, but between 24 and 26, I'm usually quite happy.
And your typical snare drum, I know this is the replacement snare,
Yeah.
but your typical snare drum is your Ian Paice model
Yeah.
Pearl snare drum.
Yeah.
What's the story with that snare drum?
I've been playing a metal shell snare for a long, long time, so I'm sort of used to that sound. And when Pearl said we'll make you know, one that you'd like to configure, well, they already sort of had it. They had a metal shell, but I think it was some copper alloy or brass alloy. I said, I don't need that. What I want is a little more bottom. So I said, just make it out of steel. The whole thing, just steel. Cheap for you to make, perfect for me to play, and cheap for kids to buy if they want one. You know, you don't need to. I don't believe you need to spend thousands of dollars on a snare drum. I just don't see the point. You know, the difference between the tonal sound of them is so negligible. You go and have a month of good dinner somewhere. You enjoy yourself.
Well, the purple 70s kit was superphonic back then, so that's a just standard
stuff,
Ludwig snare.
Yeah. As I said to you earlier on, these are the really important things of these.
The heads.
You can have this, the best kit in the world, most expensive, gorgeous thing, and you put some crappy heads on them, and they'll sound like rubbish. You get an average little kit, put good heads on them, and you got a chance. You know, these are just reflectors. Okay, they've got to be good ones, but that's where the sound comes from, what you hit. So they've got to be good, and they're really important. You see so many guys, I know they're expensive, but once they've gone, once they're dead, you've got to change them. You can't get hitting this thing with just go, duh, because you would just get so unhappy. And when you put a new head on your drum, it sings to you, and you play better because it sounds right. So you got to do that.
So that's the key. And in this case, you choose coated ambassadors all the way around, snare and toms.
Yep.
What's under the drums?
No, just clear ambassadors.
Clear ambassadors.
Yep.
Okay. And then it looks like a pinstripe
Pinstripe,
for the kick. And
they're
that's
about the only things that really work, I think. You know, otherwise you have to start killing them with all sorts of weird stuff in the bass drum.
That might be part of what I'm hearing then in the sound.
Yeah.
Your kick drum has a very defined sound.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it would be a little rounder, if you will, if you went coated.
No,
whereas
it just wouldn't work.
It's very punchy.
Yeah, before mics got a lot cleverer and sound PA system got cleverer, I used to coat my bass drum all the way around with 2-inch foam to try and get rid of some of the overtones, but trying to leave the middle of the head alive. Mm-hmm. And it sort of worked to an extent. But these heads are great.
And you're playing Pearl pedals.
Yep.
Right. So it looks like all Pearl hardware all the way
Everything,
around.
yeah.
Well, this kit is beautiful in person. It sounds absolutely fantastic. And what are you playing for cymbals? These look very large cymbals.
They are. I went to Paice, I think it was in 1970. Before that, I had Zildjians. And the only reason I changed it because I broke a Zildjian. And I couldn't find one that sounded like it. Because they were so expensive in the UK, most stores kept 2 or 3 at the most, And they were all different, which was their glory and their downfall. Because if you had one and you wanted to replace it, it was really difficult. And somebody told me that Paice's production technique was that every cymbal came out the same. He had a guy checking that the weight of the metal was right, everything about it, the hammering was correct. So if you do lose one or break one, you just said, send me another one. And sure as hell, it came in and sounded exactly the same. And that is so valuable on the road. You don't want surprises. You just want it to be the sound you expect. And you're right, they're big.
And that's what happened, though. You find that Paice, you've played them for your whole career.
Yeah.
You replace one, and the other one's all
and
there.
Usually
it's the 2002 series.
They've got lots of other good cymbals, but this to me is once you've got it right, just keep it going. They're beautiful cymbals. Not only do they sound great acoustically, they record well as well. So they're good for microphones.
And you use the 2002 in studio as well?
Yeah. Okay. I might go down a size. This 22 would go with a 24 is, and a 20 would go there. Oh, because you can overblow it in the studio.
Right.
But last time I spoke to Eric Paice, who's a friend, I said, I love the ride cymbal, but it's missing a little bit on the bell. But I don't like the bell ride; it's too heavy. So I said, could you make one which is sort of between a slightly heavier bell, and that's that one. It's still got prototype written on it. I keep telling him he should produce it because it's just such a sweet sound. You've got that, and then it's hard in the middle, but it's not overbearing.
Right.
Whereas I found that the bell ride is too much, and then you lose that lovely swish of the ride cymbal.
Right.
So that's the only unique cymbal. The rest are all, 22 China.
22 China, 8-inch splash,
Yeah.
24,
22.
and 15-inch hats. Have you always played 15s?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I had 14s, and eventually I couldn't hear them. So I decided to move to 15s, and I can hear those. And if they're not there, it's a sound I miss. I still use 15s in the studio too.
So this is the sound of Purple. When we hear Smoke on the Water and all the classic iconic hi-hats, it's 15-inch Sound Edge 2002s.
Yeah.
And then cowbell looks
it's well beaten up.
like a very road-worn cowbell.
I'm not even sure.
I heard you play it. It sounds great.
It may even be from the Burn period, because I didn't have many cowbells. I had a couple of good ones, and when you say one's done some miles, not the same shape it was when it came out of the factory.
No, it still sounds great.
It does sound nice. So.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Ian Paice sticks.
ProMark were kind enough to endorse me on these things. I don't use these in the studio. They're too heavy. But on stage, if I haven't got this weight, I find I'm trying to overhit. So these are theoretically a little too heavy for me, but with this big kit, they sort of work.
They have a really cool feel to them. A little bit
They're not
5B-ish.
Yeah, but they're not. They're I think there's a 16th narrower than a 5B.
I see. That's why they have a 5A kind of diameter.
Yeah. They're just a little heavier here.
Okay.
If I don't have this weight in the neck, they tend to break all over the place, and I never break these.
Any other accessories or anything else you want to share with us?
No, we do use internal miking because, again, when you're traveling around the world and you're different PA companies, you've got mic stands. You never know how good they are.
So these have the Mace system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Randy has helped us out a few times, and he's always very helpful. If something new comes along, he lets us know, and we utilize it when we can.
So that's why it looks so clean. When you look at this kit, it doesn't look mic'd, which is awesome. And the sound, having it right in the drum.
Yeah. What you're getting is that little bit of separation you need, and the mics are there for the cymbal, basically. That's it.
Do you ever integrate electronics?
No, I tried it years ago. Before triggering was very clever. just to try and defeat some of those halls which had bad sound, where you couldn't do anything about it. And I had this huge great box used to go around with a little control thing on it.
Oh, this is going way back.
Oh, yes.
Is this Vince
80s.
Gutman?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Mark days
Yeah.
of Black Knight triggers, and
and
so that was to compensate for the sound system.
just trying to make it better, But there was so much double triggering and no triggering, and in the end, that's not good. And even now, I got some Roland things which I try occasionally. But even them, if you got low tuned heads that move a lot, they start triggering. Right. So you've got to tune everything really, really tight. And what you're hearing then is nothing to do with the kit. You're just hearing the trigger.
But in the days when you experimented back in those Mark days, it was a hybrid. You would trigger, and it would just kind of be reinforcement.
Yeah, and when you got the trigger happen when you didn't hit anything, it's quite, you'd hit the bass drum, the snare drum trigger would go off. Jesus, man.
And those are early days.
Yeah.
That's like pioneering days.
Yeah, I didn't pioneer for very long, I tell you.
Can we hear the kit?
Sure.
Give it a quick spin. Interesting about this setup is that I've followed your playing since the first record, and I always recognized that a lot of the intricate things you did with the bass drum and the different fills and patterns and whatnot with one bass drum. That was almost a calling card of yours, really.
Right.
And now I notice you have a double pedal, which to me is I was like, wait a second, when I missed a chapter here. So what's the story with that?
When we did the album with Fireball on it, the track Fireball, I tried doing it with one bass drum because you couldn't get the power, So I've told the story before, but the studio we were using the night before the Who had been in, and Keith's kit was still there.
Okay.
So I dragged one of his bass drums over where my hi-hat would be, and just played whatever was played on the hi-hat, just going, and played it that way, and all of a sudden it worked because it had the power.
Right.
But that's all I can do with it. I cannot play two bass drums to any great extent, and I don't try. I've been creating patterns with one bass drum so long, I can't undo it. I am mesmerized by some of these guys who can. I mean, you look at what Thomas Lang does with two bass drums, you just go, "This is not humanly possible," So I don't even try and get on that plane. There's other things I can do that make me happy and seem to make a lot of other people happy, and I'm happy with that. I don't try and step outside what makes me feel good to try and compete with somebody that I can't compete with. I don't see the point in that.
Who was a big influence of yours when you started playing? Who did you really look up to that and inspired and influenced the 4-piece approach and just the whole approach to drumming?
Well, the two drummers I really liked. Obviously, I thought Ringo was great. I still think he's great. I think some of the feels were just wonderful. But Bobby Elliott from the Hollies, because he had a sharp sound. You could hear every note he played, and he had interesting little fills. So they were the two. Okay, as you get more into it, you start finding other people. Of course, from Krupa, you move on to Rich, and then you say, should I ever play again?
Did you ever see Buddy live?
Yeah, and I met him a couple of times. He was very nice to me.
And speaking of Ringo, you played with Paul McCartney.
Yeah, Paul's a lovely fella. people, because he's a singer and a songwriter, that's what people think. But what a bass player.
That you guys have been playing at the top of your game, still touring. I mean, you and I ran into each other at a stadium show in South America last year. I mean, you're all over the place. You're still playing huge places. The band sounds incredible. And you know, thank God, everybody's just firing on all cylinders. Yeah, there's a lot of passion still.
I keep saying this to any kids who haven't seen a really good rock and roll show, because there aren't many around now. You will feel something totally different to any other music that you go and see. A really good rock and roll show is a physical thing in a constructive way. It's not negative, you know. And there are very few of us left from that generation who created it, still doing it. So if you do get a chance to see it, do yourself a favor and do it.
Ian, thank you for taking us around the kit. It sounds phenomenal, looks phenomenal. Everyone, Ian's on tour, of course, as always, with Deep Purple. So check them out around the world playing with Deep Purple. They have 2 releases this year. In the last 6 months, the Machine Head box set reissue and their new album, One. Thank you, Ian Paice.
Pleasure, man.
I'm
Thanks,
David
guys.
Frangioni, modern drummer. We'll see you guys soon.